Hello, welcome to another tonalist landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and the painting I am bringing you today is a study after our good friend and comrade, Cadmium Orange. Cadmium Orange, take a bow. We love you. You're awesome. So useful. Yeah. I'm going to read you some stuff about Cadmium Orange, but before I get into that, I'll talk about my history of Cadmium Orange. I have been doing oil paintings for about over 10 years now. Cadmium Orange was not on my palette until about 4, maybe 5 years ago, and um, prior to that, I had an orange that was it's permanent orange from Gamblin, and it's a lovely color. It's really a nice color. What it doesn't have that Cadmium Orange has is opacity, and you probably are, maybe you're getting a little tired of me harping on opacity versus transparency in this series, but I have to say this is turning out to be one of the really key aspects to accomplishing different things with oil painting. You can only do so much with transparent pigments, and you can only do so much with opaque pigments. What you really need is a good balance between the two. And if I was going to have some sort of like uber super palette, I might have both permanent orange and cadmium orange in my palette, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have cadmium orange in my palette. And the reason I'm going to do that is because cadmium orange is super useful. Now, before I go into that, let's talk about what we're doing right now on the painting. We're doing a drawing. I'm using Mars Black. The reason I'm using the Mars Black is due to its opacity. It's just going to help me out. Every color in this painting was opaque. And you're looking at it and you go, well, that looks kind of transparent to me. Well, you know, you can make opaque colors transparent by having more oil, but one of the reasons I wanted to stop talking about the more scientific stuff is like, I'm looking at this color I'm painting and I'm going, oh my god, that is just ugly. What a dirty, icky color. I can't recall if I've ever actually mixed either Bone Black or Mars Black or any black with orange before. In the reference I had set up, I had a much prettier reddish tone when, now what I'd done is I'd used the actual swatch of cadmium orange and just pure black and pure white in the computer, but the way light functions is not the way pigments function. And those differences, you know, wouldn't have meant anything to previous generations, but a lot of us who I got very, very involved with color in the computer. I have a very deep and broad understanding of color and how it works, and all of the color in the computer is light, whereas when you're talking pigments, you're talking little bits of rock suspended in a solution like oil. Anyway, this opaqueness, there is all three of the cadmiums are on my palette now, and they're used all the time. Yellow, cadmium yellow, cadmium red, and cadmium orange. And the interesting thing is they all have different functions. One of my favorite things to do with cadmium orange is, say I'm painting a tree or something. I painted the bulk of the tree. I want to come in and start doing some highlights. If I was to add white, the color would blanch out and become a sort of icky pastel that would look unnatural. If I add yellow, a lot of times the color takes on this sort of icky poison green sort of quality. But if I add orange, invariably I get a color that's a bit lighter, a bit warmer, and it feels natural. So that's my number one favorite use. And having that opacity, especially since my main green mixture, Mike's Green, is only it's only semi-opaque, right? Because that's created with Hansa yellow, which is also known as acrylamide yellow, which is semi-opaque, semi-transparent, however you want to put it. Anyway, that's my number one use. My secondary use, say I'm painting a sky, right? And I'm painting blues, and then I want to just flip into some gray clouds. Well, I don't even need to do anything to my brush. I don't need to clean my brush, change a brush. I just grab some Cad Orange and start mixing that with whatever's in my brush, and I get beautiful complementary grays right out of the gate, which look great in the sky. So that's two really significant uses for Cadmium Orange. It's a very useful color, and I love it. Now I guess I could get it by mixing Cad Yellow and Cad Red, and there's always a threshold. That would be the best word, I guess, for like a color. Like I can mix yellow ochre very easily with a simple or basic palette, but I use yellow ochre all the time. It's just easier to have it there. Same goes burnt sienna. I could get that pretty easily with alizarin crimson and cadmium yellow. Get something pretty close, maybe a little bits of blue in here and there, and be pretty close to burnt sienna. But I use a ton of burnt sienna. Sometimes all my underpaintings done with burnt sienna. It makes sense to have burnt sienna on the palette. Anyway, I guess before we get into some of the scientific stuff, the other thing that was going on with this painting, you're seeing a hint of it now, is when you hit that orange with the white, again, not something I mix very often, you tend to get this kind of sherbety color. And it's crying out for yellow, it's crying out for warmth. But I have to say the painting at the end of the day has a lot of integrity and it works fine. If I really wanted to make it stand even better on its own as a painting, I'd give it a real quick glaze, probably with some Indian yellow. Who knows, I may do that, or I'm sort of inclined to just keep the project pure. There's a few of these paintings I'm probably going to go in and do a few touches here and there. But anyway, would you like to know a little bit about good old cadmium and and we're going to get into this here. The cadmiums. Cadmium. This is a site called cadmium.org. Wow. Working towards a sustainable future. The International Cadmium Association. Wow! Cadmium pigments. Introduction. Cadmium pigments are stable, inorganic coloring agents which are produced in a range of rich, vibrant shades of yellow, orange, and red, and maroon. I haven't tried that. Modern day pigments made by... Actually, I have seen deep. Cadmium red deep is pretty dang dark, yeah. Modern day pigments made by our ICDA member companies are carefully engineered products manufactured in regulated chemical plants with full health and safety, blah blah blahs. The pigment chemistry is based on solid solutions of calcinating at a high temperature to convert fully to a crystalline and stable hexagonal form before undergoing a series of further treatments resulting in highly engineered pigment grade products. And I have to say, man, cadmium, that's your priciest pigment. Must be all the stuff they've got to go through. Now, when I was doing research for this video, I was reading about cadmium itself, the mineral, the metal, which is silver. It's not remotely yellow or red, so it must make that transformation when it goes through some chemical processes. Also, there was another site now. This one was good. Where is this one? It talks about it. There are many different. This was Cadmium Orange from colorlex.com. Composition and properties of cadmium orange. There are many different color variations of this pigment achieved by an admixture of selenium sulfide to pure cadmium sulfide. So when they bring in the selenium, that's what makes it redder and redder and redder. I believe the pure cadmium is the yellow. Yeah. Orange to red. The light version of the pigment is pure cadmium sulfide. The deeper orange tones can contain up to 12% selenium. The variations are solid solutions of either zinc sulfide or selenium sulfide in cadmium sulfide. The pigment is stable in its pure state. Now, there's going to be something coming up here I want to address, yeah. The occurrences of bleaching or darkening in the beginnings of its use were due to impurities. It is light fast, but it is not compatible with lead and copper containing pigments as they form dark sulfides of lead or copper. Well, now that would be phthalo green, right? That's copper. Lead white, which I've kind of sort of got away from, but someone had contacted me on the YouTube channel a long time ago and told me that this has been debunked, that you can indeed mix the lead type pigments with the cadmium pigments, and because of the way they're suspended in the mediums, they don't actually you don't actually get this darkening that can occur, that they say can occur when lead and cadmium are mixed together. So that's been debunked. I hope, we hope we don't find out 500 years in the future, but it's kind of become a non-issue in that, like I said, I've sort of phased out lead white for the moment. I definitely do get into lead white when I'm doing any of my figurative stuff, but the website says landscapepainter.co.nz for a reason, and that's because that's how I like to paint. Now, one thing I want to point out about our little painting here is you look at it and you look at that Cad Orange tube I flashed at the beginning, you go, well, that's a lot oranger than anything here. I didn't get much of an opportunity to just chalk in pure Cadmium Orange. It might be something good to do, in a little second color pass, possibly. What I did is I've used the pigment in conjunction with black and white to create an attractive painting, and everything is pivoting off of the cadmium. In many of the paintings, I have been able to have an area of the painting that was 100% pure pigment, and I especially tried to do that where the pigment was opaque. That was quite challenging to do, say in the case of like a phthalo green or something like that, which when you squeeze out of the tube it looks like it's almost black. It's not till you start adding some white or yellow that you see how it really looks, right? Anyway, Cadmium Orange, so useful. Never used it like this, but it's a nice painting. It's attractive. Like I said, I'm so tempted. Well, actually, I'm almost through in the studio. Since most of the people who don't care much have dropped away. I am. Today is Sunday, November 15th of 2020. Yesterday in the studio I did two paintings. I did the permanent green painting, which was very interesting. I won't talk too much about that because we'll get into it when we do the video. But I also did a painting with dioxine purple, and I have been trying to actually dioxine purple is fine because that's next, and it's on my palette right next to permanent green, and there's like a little ghetto there where those are two very rarely used colors that just kind of inhabit a space on my palette, like the rarely used ghetto. But they're essential, and that's why they're on my palette. Yeah. Anyway, I ended up being pretty happy with this study. I ended up learning about some the properties of cadmium orange I might not have been that aware of. I have to say I'm falling more in love with the cadmiums with every passing day in the studio. They're so useful, they're so handy, and one of the great things about this project is it's kind of pushed me into a way of thinking a little bit more about opacity, since I think a lot of my painting methods are really based on transparency, a lot of boards peeking through, things like that. It's been quite interesting to just wrangle with opacity, and pigments like cadmium are super opaque. Anyway, we're getting close to the end of this video. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please tip on over to my website. Go ahead and buy a painting. Why not? There's some really cool ones there. I do have a plan to get some more stuff up there. We'll see if I can get into doing that. The painting's fun, but keeping up the website not so much so. Anyway, consider joining the members area. There's a great live version of this video there. You might really dig that. And until I come back with another video, which will be very soon, and I appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, please take good care, stay out of trouble, please be patient with people in this I guess quickening of humanity's consciousness, and stay out of trouble.